slippage. But again, it's, as Russ said, it's just a small hole, but that's what we're looking at these days. Is there anything else, Russ?
Not
Gary?
right now.
Steve? Tom?
Well, Jeannie asked sort of what the board's thought on what to do next. I guess what I'd like to do next is schedule a closed session with the, as soon as possible, I guess. And if you look at under her actions needed, under the first request, and then there's 3 sub-requests, all require some degree of consultation with the unions. And I think we should have a discussion amongst the board as to just, you know, how we wish to divide this up, how we wish to go about it. I think that is an entirely an appropriate closed session item. And I think that's probably where the discussion basically should go, since that's going to be, I suspect, a very significant component of any solution.
Okay.
So those are my comments.
I have some questions, Shirley. Just Russ's on the TOT. If we're pretty much on course, why do you anticipate it being less? I thought we were pretty much 52%. I thought I read in the staff report.
I believe we were down about, the way we were looking at it, it will come in based on what we've received. And when I was actually looking at the projections, for mid-year I stated this is where we are, but I also pulled in January and February. So in looking at it, if I extrapolated that out, it looked like we might be short about 24,000, I believe, is the number.
Okay, all right, thank you. If I understand the state revenue subventions on the rural and small county law enforcement, AB 443, so we anticipate receiving pretty much under 400,000 versus the 500,000 that we have been receiving. You said 106, we will be getting second quarter, we received 90, and if we get the third quarter,
when we get the third quarter, which we fully expect to do in April, it will be probably somewhere in that neighborhood, 90 to 106,000. And then the fourth quarter, we will receive it. It's just more likely that it will be received in the next fiscal year.
Okay, so we're still getting the 500. It's just coming in a lot differently, and some will be in the next fiscal year. Okay, thank you. On the general fund expenditures, public safety, when you mentioned freezing major OES grant expenditures, was this the state OES? I thought, I wasn't clear.
Actually, when the mid-year report came in from the Sheriff's Department under OES, they spoke of temporarily freezing major expenditures so that the reimbursements could catch up, because the reimbursements are behind. And if you go and you spend $500,000 in grant expenditures in May, you're definitely not going to get $500,000 before that reimbursed before the end of the fiscal year. And since the state has been taking longer to reimburse those, it was my understanding from the report that they were going to slow those expenses down until the reimbursements caught up.
Okay.
They're trying to help cash flow.
Yeah. That's why the 50,000 populations.
Oh, it's big.
But that doesn't apply to everything.
No.
And so,
That's just an additional additional amount of money that they would have withheld that we would not have anticipated them withholding.
The deferrals more or less were health and human services and roads,
transportation,
and transportation. These are grant reimbursements. These are the grants that have went out and applied for specific purposes.
on the May 09 special election, have we received that?
That is included in the 10-11 budget.
When you developed the budget, you thought you would get that money this year.
Right.
That's one of those that, it's in the governor's budget for next year, so we're hopeful we'll get that. But it won't be this year.
Pursuing monies owed the county, I understood there was a partnership being developed or is developed between the counties and the courts for
MOU.
pursuing revenue collections, like fees, so forth. That was the Administration of Justice Committee yesterday.
There's an
we talked-
MOU that the court has been working on with the county that has been in process for months, even before my arrival, that will be coming to the board, and that will allow us to recoup some costs for buildings and grounds and some other costs. I think that's what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Those are just the questions I had now. Thank you. I'd like to open it up to any public or staff members who would like to make a comment. The objective for today would be having staff get some direction on what we would like the administrative office to do on the 2009-10 budget.
Marina, may I interrupt too also?
Sure.
We also need direction on the 09-10, whether you want to use the general fund reserves and contingencies as
What
to
did I
bridge the
say?
gap.
You said
10,
11.
I said
10,
10.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean, there's
meant
two
nine.
prongs.
Right. What we
One
want
is-
is 9, 10, to give some direction.
Yeah. Because if you don't want to use the reserves and you don't want to use the contingencies, then we're gonna have to look at some additional cuts.
Well, Lynn doesn't want us using the reserves.
No, she wouldn't.
On the question of the reserves, since you just brought that up, if we do that, then are we going to have to go out for short gap through trans and do that? Because that's what we've done before.
I don't think we know the answer to that. But this is the money we're going to transfer into reserves that has not been transferred yet.
The
Oh,
reserves
okay.
stand a little over $2
$2 million.
million, and what it was, the board's direction was to, instead of putting 950,000 into contingencies, put 450 in contingencies and transfer 507,000 into the reserves. That transfer has not occurred.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Without that transfer, what is the amount of the reserve currently?
A little over $2 million.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to where I was initially, and that is, I think we should, on both these, the 09-10 and the 10-11, I think we should have a closed session and discuss that, because if we are going to take some particular action to, as a board, to address the 2010-2011 budget reduction, perhaps the board might decide to implement that action prior to the end of the fiscal year. And if so, then that would also be addressing the 09-10 budget. So I guess I'm not willing to commit to much of anything until we actually have a discussion with the board and staff present as to, because I think part of it is just when you implement whatever the actions that are going to be required for 2010 and 2011. And I think all of that is going to, I suspect some component of all of that is going to revolve around some meet and confer issues. And I think if that's the case, then we probably should have a closed session item on that.
Thank you.
That's my
Mr.
2
Segal.
cents worth.
Thank you. Mr. Segale?
Thank you, Val Segala, Taxpayer Association. Well, several things. One, it seems as though we're not at the bottom. We may be going lower. And also, we can't really trust information coming from the federal government, like the recession's over. I think we can trust the assessor's projections of perhaps a 10% reduction in income. In my real estate business, I see that. and I see that happening. Property values are continuing to go down. It seemed, for one thing, you're doing a good job. You have a mid-year and you're so close to where you anticipated before, which shows there was good thinking starting out. But looking ahead, it looks like it'd be wise to plan at least a contingency budget to anticipate some significant losses in the coming 6 months, so that there won't be any sort of surprise. And the second thing is, I don't know if you know Greg Petro. He's the CAO of Tuolumne County. He had a luncheon talk to the Chamber of Commerce over there, which I listened to. I was very impressed with that man. I asked him to give me a summary of what his remarks, but he didn't do it. But in those remarks, he ticked off a number of things that county did in the way of privatization, and also some other cost-saving things that it did. And I want to get this information to you. I wasn't able to do it, and I apologize. But what could be done is use some of the CAO's money to hire a consultant. And I'm not talking about somebody on staff or anything like Mittner. I'm talking about maybe a few hours of an expert in privatization. Contact the Reason Foundation. They used to have an organization called the Local Government something or other. But what they did is they kept track of all the communities, not just in California but nationwide, of ways they found to save money through the process of privatization. And sometimes some of these don't work. Other ones are just not feasible. And of course, sometimes there's resistance from organized labor. But having an expert, and it's not me, having an expert look at your whole budget from the standpoint of privatization, what could really be done from the private sector? At least then you'll have an array of possibilities that you can discuss further. We don't have anybody right now that's an expert at that with us. So, and the cost of doing that, I'm sure, is going to be far less than the amount of money that you would be able to save. And once again, good job and an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tuttle, please.
I noticed the report on the last page. The CAO is asking for actions needed, and I know that we're going to be preparing our preliminary budgets. So I don't know if she wanted that today, but I think what's important to me and a lot of department heads is to know as soon as possible if we're going to be preparing our proposed budgets showing 17.5% reduction in general fund contributions, so we can go back and start figuring out what we're going to do.
That's up to the board.
Thank
That's
you.
on the list.
Thanks.
On Mr. Segala's suggestion about privatization, I'm not aware that Tuolumne County has privatized anything except their hospital. Can you shed a light on anything else?
If I wasn't so old, I remember things better. On the items that Greg Pedro ticked off, they had a tremendous saving by privatizing their hospital. That was bleeding that county like $5 million a year. It was really serious. You don't have that problem here because you already have a private hospital. Taxpayers don't pay for your hospital. Another one they found was privatizing food in the jail. Do you have a contractor doing that now?
No.
Okay, there's one item. Now, if you get an expert to look at this thing, they'll probably find a whole lot more items. And these are items that other jurisdictions or other cities and counties have found to be successful. We're not talking about something out of, off the deep end. We're talking about things that could work and could allow you to provide a better service at less cost.
Hi, Carl Stoughton. First off, John Hamilton, your wife called. She's looking for you. I'm sorry, folks, but it's true. I wanted to address Thomas's question about the TOT tax. Most municipalities have a surcharge of about 3% that's on top of the TOT tax. They use the TOT tax for road maintenance and other fixed county uses, and that surcharge goes to the Visitors Bureau and museums and other facilities that aren't really part of the county. So there you go.
The surcharge, and Mariposa was done by the private businesses themselves. It was not done by the county.
In Oakland, it was done by the city, and it was voted as Major C.
So it was a
it's different in
vote.
different places, but
So it has to be voted
it
on
has to be voted on.
at
Yes.
2/3 vote.
Yes, and I'm sure Tom will want to write the opposition if they do put up a
Thank you,
surcharge on
Carl.
the ballot. So, and Russ can write the pro. So
Okay,
we
thank
have
you.
two sides here.
Colleen Tracy, Health Services Agency Director. And as Jeannie pointed out, both of us had, since 2007, certainly recognized the worsening situation for the county overall, have been very conscious and aware of the provision that exists in statute to transfer health and also mental health realignment, and also social services realignment, but recognize the worsening situation. In addition to recognizing that, I do want to point out, and if the board decides, of course, that they would like to conduct a public hearing attendant to the transfer of 10% of the health realignment to conserve county general fund and make that available for other county needs, which I think is what Jeannie's and our shared intent has been on this. One of the things that I will bring up is that the realignment represents 57% of the total budgeted revenue for this department for public health. But there's an important demand, and that's the other thing that Jeannie and I have always been very prudent and will need to continue to be so, and that is that this is the budget unit that carries the expenditure associated with the Section 17,000 Welfare and Institutions Code for the provision of medically indigent health care. And that expenditure represents over $900,000 and is paid from our realignment. So over half of the realignment revenue in public health is basically committed to that CMSP contribution, which continues to be a very good investment for Calaveras County. Our claims are between $2 and $3 million for a approximately $1 million investment, and so that continues to be prudent. We do recognize that they're in this type of economic situation that people need to be kept whole, and we recognize that just basically from a Maslow's hierarchy of actualization, you need to be able to have shelter, you need to be able to have food. Hopefully you don't become sick, okay? I think it's also important that unemployment data in the United States, our preferred method of financing health care is through employer-supported health insurance. And as that unemployment rate increases, we see increased demand in CMSP. And the caseload for Calaveras County has increased about 70% over the last 2 years. And CMSP is, as other publicly funded organizations are, rapidly depleting their reserve and are anticipating changes not until 12/13. Now, it's a very well-managed program, I find, and so I believe that they're doing prudent actions to prevent themselves falling off a cliff. But should that happen, that demand would come back on the county. However, by that time, maybe we will start to be seeing the effects of some type of an economic recovery. So I wanted to speak to this item.
Thank you.
Jim Turley with SEIU, and I appreciate the position that you are all in, but we have to go back a couple of steps. We gave last year in excess of $1.6 million in savings to the county. The Sheriff's Department took a different step, and they're going to get their $455,000 back.
Could you speak up, please, Mr. Turley? Thank you.
Okay. In any case, and I have no problem with them getting the money back, I would like our positions back as well. I don't think we can give one without giving the other, if indeed we do. If we're going to request additional cuts, then I would think that if the Sheriff's Department gets the $455,000 back, that their cut this year would double to $900,000, which I don't think would be acceptable to them and wouldn't be acceptable to anybody. But math, and let's face it, that's what we're doing is math, moving numbers around. That would be the fair math way of doing it. Now, in looking forward, this year, with the cuts that we took, we have managed to service the public with minimal impact. If you continue to cut staff or cut salaries or cut people or limit what you want, then your dreams of progressing in this county have to change to the point that it's a stalemate. You're not going to grow. You're not going to go anywhere as far as progress until you turn this around. Our contract ends June 30th of this year. We're going to start negotiations in April. I will not, as president of the union, present a 10% cut or a 7% PERS payment or furlough times to my membership. I will not go into negotiations with that as being part of the package. We have gone 30 months knowing that the economic situation is what it is. We have gone 30 months without asking or receiving any kind of pay increase. The majority of the county employees, your constituents, have gone 30 months. We won't ask for a lot, but we need some help. And if you continue the cuts and continue down the road that you continue down with the passing of your resolution today, you show absolutely no regard to the employees of the county. And that's hurtful. And I sincerely hope that the incumbents and the people that are going to run after you keep that in mind. We have a force of 250 plus people that will be watching your next step. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to make? I'd like to then bring it back to the board if there's no other comments. Mr. Thomas?
Well, prior to Mr. Turley's last comment, I wasn't necessarily in favor of taking this into a closed session, but from the experience that I've had in labor negotiations, it just seems like that was kind of a statement in advance that the union does not consider itself to be in a position to negotiate. Don't come to us with any proposal to negotiate. And I think that pretty much compels me to agree with Supervisor Tryon's suggestion that we take this immediately into a closed session. I very much regret having to say that, but that's the way I'm looking at this.
That is one of the options. There's also other options out there that we're being asked to consider. So do any of the board members want to voice their opinions? And so staff will know. Mr. Walensky.
Reading through this, nobody can take great joy in the moment. I don't see a lot of smiling faces out there, and there's certainly none up here. As I said in the earlier discussion, I don't think our generation has had a whole lot of experience with this level of economic dislocation and disruption, things that we assumed were sort of the standard in public service are now completely up for challenge, and the underpinnings of civil service and good governance are certainly up for review. I want to express my support for some of these things and highlight the things that I think are most important in this. On page 21 of our document that we were given, and I really hope that everybody here had a chance to read it, because it's more thorough than what you saw in the PowerPoint, although those points are made. The thing that I hold dear, and it's part of my history and former life, is expressed in the following sentence at the top of the page. The county encourages the entire workforce to engage in identifying possible budget reduction strategies that will help reduce budget deficit. I would add to that I think it's important that we have strategies to preserve services to the public. That's the whole purpose of government. And somehow we must find a higher level of engagement. There's a very cynical mood, and I think that mood is well earned. I think that we've had a sense of betrayal, inequity, the relationships that have transpired between labor and management in this county have not always been well conducted or well appreciated, and my sense is that this moment will test our ability to conduct good faith negotiations as part of the process. It requires engagement, and it requires people who know about the nature of work to be ready to help shape it in a way that is efficient, that benefits the public, that reiterates our mission. Without you, we're left, without that input, we're left with a more abstract and far away perspective, which will often find poor results for all. When we talk about setting the table for the kind of discussions that we're going to have, at least part of this has to do with what kinds of other initiatives we're actually practicing. And I'd like to outline a few that I think are not in here that I would hope we would find. We talk about the idea of internal efficiencies, and right now the department heads, and I presume the departments, are engaged in talking about how each department might operate in a more efficient way. And I also believe that the department head meetings are beginning to address ways, and the working groups in particular, are ways that people can begin to address internal efficiencies that move various departments working together to find solutions. Sometimes it's in training and cross-training. I was a little alarmed that we were talking about cutting the training budget, because there are moments where if you train and cross-train a workforce, people can move with the flow of work and help one another out when we're short-staffed, which we're going to be. And so some level of investing in this workforce is going to be important in seeing this through, and training and cross-training is one example of that. However, something that's missing entirely, and this is endemic in rural county organization, but something that's missing is how do we, once we get our own world together within departments and between departments, how do we relate to the rest of the world? I've noted that Supervisor Tryon has often said that volunteers doing partnerships with the county have done great service. And I think we're going to have to rely on our communities standing up and helping out in a wide range of, and a wide area of effort. Parks and Rec has been a good example of that, but we have, and the food banks and other things have been part of that. We can rely on those partnerships if we develop them and formalize them. Another aspect of this is what do we do between agencies? I have 4 areas that I think are critical that we start looking at with our school districts, with the water districts, with the multiple agencies doing public service. We don't have joint purchasing agreements. We're all buying the same stuff, but in small quantities. having some kind of consolidation of just that effort could save money. A second area that seems to make sense is the idea of fleet management, not just within the county. We seem to have several different versions of that going on, not all of them very efficient. But we also have entire fleets with several school districts, again, water agencies. Why not find common management of this? Why not find common economies of scale just in purchasing fleets? When you're larger, you have an opportunity to save money, let alone the maintenance of them. When we're not doing preventive maintenance on a common scale across the board, we wind up having our vehicles last fewer years and wind up having heroic efforts keeping them going with higher maintenance. It's kind of like the transmission ad, you can pay me now or pay me later, but if we don't manage that in a common and thorough way, it won't work. I'd say the same thing for information technology. If you take a look at the school districts and take a look at some of our previous investments, you can see that different agencies that often have a need for communications have completely different systems, and that sometimes we don't even master the ones we have before they're obsolete. I believe that a common effort between public agencies in a small county would go a long way to saving money there, certainly on the purchase in the first place. Again, large scale matters, and we're a small scale county that can't afford to divide ourselves in the many pieces that we have. I also believe that we have issues with our health benefits. We're having a national debate about this, but prevention matters. And having a local health product that it has agreements with local hospitals and local providers, but connected to larger networks such as the CHW and Sutter ones that are available in this area, we might be able to negotiate over time with good hard effort, and it takes more than a year even to develop such a thing. But there could be a local plan that emphasizes prevention, emphasizes use of local facilities, cuts the middleman out of the arrangement, and could save money. These are big expenditures that we're doing, but we're not thinking enough outside of our own structural entities to be able to even get to these solutions. We've got to start talking beyond our borders. And I don't see any way out of this. You know, we can tinker with the deck chairs here, but the people talking about it was painful last year at 17.5%, and are looking forward to this year at roughly the same level of disaster. It's just not within our capacity to both fulfill our mission and stay within this structure. It does not house solutions. And the way we are isolating the discussion is a sure recipe for failure. But the second part of that is that without doing these efficiencies and without showing good faith in that, it's going to be very hard to pin this whole thing on the backs of the workforce. And setting the table in that way without other initiatives on a broader and more long-term structural basis only condemns us to repeat experiences like last year, which I found to be awkward at best and, I don't know, cruel and capricious at worst. Let me add one other thing. I don't think that when we look at the entire workforce, that a one-size-fits-all approach, if we're all in it together, all the way from the board, all the way through every line worker, then we've got to find ways of including service considerations and the different funding sources to be able to come up with an equitable solution for whatever kinds of agreements we reach. And let me add a couple of these that are on my mind. We have people working with federal dollars that if you reduce hours, you wind up actually reducing federal dollars. So clearly, if that crowd has to do, and much of this is outside the general fund consideration, but it's an important group, it's a numerically high group, and the services they provide are critical. So how do you deal with that? And what is a way that groups like that can make contributions without destroying the program? Secondly, you have public safety. which is every time you reduce an hour or a job there, what you do is you trigger overtime expenses. So what is the form of contribution that makes sense there? We have yet other folks who are fee-based. And when their fees are down, like the building department, layoffs, huge layoffs at high percentage of the workforce have already occurred. So what is fair and equitable in relation to that? Unless we're thinking in a complex way and have more than one size fitting all, we're never going to get to agreements that are truly fair and equitable, but also mindful of the service requirements that we face. I believe that unless we can all come together, at least equitably, if not all in the same way, that there's no hope for moving anything beyond wholesale slashes in personnel and services, and that is something I oppose.
Mr. Tuffanelli?
I'm in favor of what Supervisor Thomas and Tryon advocate for as a closed session. Discuss this.
I support a closed session, but that is only one component of what it is that is before us. There are a list of suggestions that the staff has on page 20 for the 9-10 budget year. I think we should consider these. These are things that need to be done in the public arena to get started. They're not things that would be said in a closed session in terms of where we might want to go in negotiating with our unions, which I think we should be doing that anyway, because as Steve said, we're all of us are in this. I agree with Stephen that we need to redefine how we do services, and as he stated, looking to the other agencies to partner on purchasing and so forth. I think that's a challenge for our administrative office to do in working with the other agencies. That's not something that is going to help us through the 9-10 budget year. What is it that we are going to be giving staff to get us through the 9-10 budget year? And as the district attorney asked, if what you're saying is giving us a 17.5% that we need to deal with as a cut, just tell us, and that's how we'll start working. I know last year the departments all wanted, just give us a number and we'll do it. Well, with how the state changes on a daily basis, I don't think that we can easily do that, but I think it's a starting place. And I think and I would be very comfortable in saying, yes, I think staff in going into the future, into the 10-11 budget year, taking a 17.5% budget cut is probably appropriate. I mean, I don't think the federal government is going to rescue us for $7 billion, which is what's being asked. And if they do, maybe some of that will trickle down to us, but I think we need to go to the worst case scenario. I think the CAO saying we're going to do 10% reduction in assessed value is the appropriate way to budget. And anything less than that, I think, is foolish on our part. And going back to page 20, separate from going into a closed session and giving direction to staff on where we think we would like negotiations to go. We heard what Mr. Turley said. That's their position. They can bring that to the table, but we need to start talking now. We need to start working together now. Okay. That aside, I continue to support the voluntary time off. I'd like to, and we've done this before, keep vacant positions open on a 2 to 3 month period for salary savings. Eliminating all non-essential expenditures such as travel and training. That's what we need to do to, as Steve referred to try and save jobs. Then that's what we need to do. Pursuing monies in however format that's done in individual departments and the county as a whole. We should all, I'm assuming most of the departments are doing that. Revisiting the retirement incentive package, I'm not sure what that looks like. If it's what we did last year and you're asking to do that or go there, again, we need to look at how many people would be eligible and what would be the cost, and then what would be the savings. So I'm not clear on that
We need to
one.
relook at that. I mean, I'd like to get some more input on that as to,
Okay,
if we
that-
changed it, what would it look like?
Okay, so I can't address that at this time. I do support transferring 10% of the realignment revenues. This is the time for us to utilize reserves, and I know every department in here has their hidden stash. And I'm saying now is the time to spend that stash.
That was last year's year.
Oh, well, I'd tell you what we call it, but that'd be giving away a secret. But I would be looking to the administrative office, I'd be looking to Karen Varney, who does the board's budget, to be looking at those same things. Now is the time to do it. Fee schedules, I'm not supportive of looking at fee schedules now. I don't think we're there. The only exception is that we're hoping, and it's really sort of not a fee, is the integrated waste management. Mr. Garcia is coming back to us on the solid waste trust fund, or solid waste fund. And that's a parcel tax, but I would still like that program to come forward. It has a big impact to all residents in Calaveras County. The ballot measure to increase TOT, I think there needs to be more discussion. Ms. Boyce and I met with the chamber last week. We discussed that. I understand the Visitors Bureau has a different take on it. If it's not something that has a strategy for it among those people who are really involved, I'm somewhat reluctant for the board to just put that on the ballot. So I'm not clear on wanting to support the TOT. So that's kind of where I am on the 910, to give staff somewhere to start moving. If the board has any different thoughts on the recommendations.
Do you wish to poll us on these recommendations? Is it, Jeannie, or do you need
That would be helpful. I mean,
clarity on this? Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Thomas? I mean, given that we will be asking staff to go into a closed session, not today, to discuss how we want to frame our discussions with our bargaining units.
Okay, I'm in support of these bullet point items, but I'd like a little bit more clarification about this as the one-time measure about the 700 to deal with the anticipated $717,000 shortfall. Can you explain more about this the budget transfer of the $507,000?
Oh, I forgot that. Thank you. Yeah.
that was prior board direction in the fall, that you were going to move money to the general reserve. It has not been moved. Shirley has indicated that it's usually moved at the end. So if you'd like, we can leave it. I don't know if we have to actually move it to contingencies, but leave it so that you can use it to backfill your revenue loss that's anticipated if in fact revenues continue as they have been for the first 6 months and expenditures aren't radically reduced between now and June 30th.
Okay, so
So it's essentially, it bridges the gap.
And we've received those monies? This was the Prop 1A money?
Yes.
We have received them?
Yes, we received the first payment of Prop 1A money. What it is, when we did proposed budget last year, at preliminary budget, we had 1.5 million in contingencies, and we said we wanted to leave that there in case the state suspended Prop 1A. The board, then went and allocated a certain amount of that. When we came back to final budget, and we had about 900,000, we said, the board directed 450,000 to remaining contingencies, 507 for a transfer into reserves.
okay,
That
and
has
that,
not yet been done.
Because we haven't received all of it yet.
just
It-
a-
Or you,
We usually do it at the end of the year.
And you're asking that we do it earlier than that?
No, we're asking you
No,
not to
no,
do
not
it.
to
We're asking you to use it essentially as contingency to make up for the revenue shortfall.
We're basically asking the board to decide that only do that transfer if the shortfall does not occur.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Just a second. Mr. Garcia, you're biting at the bit. God.
Do you have good news?
Heavens, no.
Well, that's not good.
I do have a question, though. The holding open vacant positions, does that apply to general fund or non-general fund or both departments? We have vacant, actually a position we're interviewing for tomorrow on the fleet manager that we hope to fill. And it would be a shame to leave that vacant for 2 to 3 months as we desperately need it.
I think
Yes,
that's...
there's irony in that, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
I think you can go ahead and proceed with that. It's usually, there's always that transition period where we've been interviewing, and we would leave that to the discretion of the CAO. I think in concept, what we're saying is if you get an opening, we would like it to be a 2 to 3 month period.
And we have, along with all the other departments, have left our vacant positions open in anticipation of something like this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Thomas, did you have anything?
I'm sure that what occurred, that this says emphatically that this was just a board direction. We did not specifically say get this done, so doing nothing will essentially accomplish what you're asking for.
That's my understanding. Do we need to make a specific budget adjustment, Shirley, when we bring it back? We may have to come.
It just shows as a transfer into reserves. I'll double check with the auditor's office, and if so, I can include that in the mid-year adjustments when I bring it back to the board.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tuffanelli?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that I would be in favor of doing what is recommended here.
well, I'm in favor of what the bullet points have to say, but pursuing state subvention funds, I'm not so sure we're going to get very far on that.
All we can do is bang.
And I understand the $507,953 trying to close our gap here at the end of the year, not putting that into reserves. That will allow for us, though, if we do that, some cash carry at the rate we're going. Is that correct? Because we have 400 and something
Yeah.
in contingencies that hasn't been touched so far.
If our projections hold, it will give us a $240,000 cash carry if we do not make the general fund, the transfer to general fund reserves. And we use that to bridge the gap as well as a portion of contingencies. It should give us a $240,000 cash carry. That was what it
Which is
was
like
based.
saying 0.
It'll be a little more than last year, 183.
A little bit more than last year, yeah. Not much. So I'm in favor of what's the bullet points you have here.
What about the review of fee schedules?
How do I stand on that? Well, I think we can certainly review them.
Usually we do a review of fees once a year prior to the budget,
But this is
separate
not
from
as
the
usual.
budget process.
Right.
you're asking that we do it even sooner.
I think
Well,
the
last year
urgency-
got done a little later than usual, so I think we would put it on the list of budget things to look at in terms of potential
Yeah.
revenue increases. I
I
mean,
don't think
Okay,
that's
thank you.
unusual.
no.
No.
Mr. Walensky?
I favor pursuing, or at least developing, approaches to all the bullet points. At least one of them involves the collective bargaining process, maybe more than one, and for those, I would rather respond in the closed session that is planned.
Mr. Tryon, how are you on these items on page 20?
Okay, let me just give an overall statement, because I would like to respond to what Mr. Turley said. And that is that, quite frankly, we're in the shape we're in because the private sector has been, the economic activity in the private sector has been significantly reduced. And I take strong exception to Mr. Turley's comments that, well, government employees have not received a pay increase for 30 months. Well, you can go out in the private sector in Calaveras County, and I'd like to see how many people have received a pay increase over the last 30 months. Mr. Turley also mentioned about how, geez, the county can't recover unless we don't cut government employee pay further. I would say there's absolutely no foundation for that argument whatsoever. The idea that we don't have a reduction in government employee pay, how that's supposed to help the private sector recover, I do not know. I would also like to take an exception to just one component of Steve's comments that, what we're witnessing is the destruction of the underpinning of good governance. I think there could be nothing further from the truth than that. I mean, we're in the position we're in because of absolutely god-awful, horrible governance, mostly at the federal level, but substantially at the state level, which is why California is the worst state in the union as far as its economy, and now they're doing shows on TV on California, the first failed state, which is embarrassing to witness. And you can even look at our own governance, whether it be the Community Development Agency or some issues in public works or the solid waste issues. Look at the governance we had last year in the budget process, which I thought was disappointing to me in the extreme, and is a process I do not wish to go through again this year, which is one of the reasons I was supportive of the additional funds to the administrative office, so that we could have a better budget process. But the idea that government is the solution could not be further from the truth. And it's all level of governments, including our own, whose failures have put us in the position we're in today. And I'll be the first to agree that the national and state issues are overwhelm the local issues, but we are not exactly a shining light either, in my opinion. And I guess so, to come back to Marita's questions, I'm not interested, and to me the solution is not taking more money out of the private sector and giving it to the public sector. So I'm not interested in increasing fees. I'm not interested in a TOT tax, which not only takes money from the private sector into the public sector, but everybody gets giddy about because we can get somebody else to pay the cost of our doing business. And quite frankly, the tourism and the like is a huge economic component, a positive component for our economy. And all the studies say that if you can get someone to spend the night, they will spend a whole lot more money than somebody on a day trip. And to the extent we have a lower TOT and more people will spend the night, we realize significant economic benefits from that. So it gets back to my earlier question. I mean, I think this should be a closed session item, because I think whatever we're going to do to address the shortfall in 2010 and 2011 should be implemented prior to next fiscal year. And we should see what the savings from that would be. And if it's not adequate enough to fill the the $700,000 deficit, then I think we should address that that deficit and not try to basically say, well, we are immediately going to grab all the monies and contingencies and 500 and something thousand out of the general fund, when we need a longer-term solution. And if we're going to have to implement cost savings for the 2010-2011 fiscal year, then I think those cost savings should be initiated sooner in this fiscal year to help generate some savings for this fiscal year. And then if there is a hole left out of that, a deficit left out of that, then that should be addressed. But what I don't want out of this budget process that came out of last year's budget process is the board says one thing, and then next week or 2 weeks we change it, and we just sort of go back and forth depending on where we are from day to day, week to week. I would like a longer term solution that hopefully everybody could buy into, that will take us through the 2010-2011 fiscal year with a prudent contingency and a prudent general reserve. So I don't want to just start the hit and miss process. We need numbers. I mean, on page 20, we need numbers that go with those estimates. We don't have those yet, other than on the contingency, I believe, in the general reserve. I guess I could go back to page 20 and look. I think we should have a hiring freeze if this